to foresee. And so that's basically what I think strategy is in a nutshell. I hope I didn't use any big words so that you can pay me a lot of money to help you with strategy.
I think that actually makes a lot of sense here. So we have a lot of external factors that tend to affect our businesses. And like for me, I'm a business person, and we know that we've come from a very tough year. And I don't think, and I don't know if things are going to get any better. So looking at the landscape right now, the economic landscape, what are some of the things that maybe we need to take into account, looking at what the economy looks like right now, how the economy maybe looks like in the next coming year? Are there things that we need to take into account to help us shell ourselves? I think COVID really made us start realizing that things can change in a matter of minutes, and we need to prepare ourselves better. So looking at the economic landscape right now, times are tough, people are complaining, like you said, there's so many factors that are affecting what we are going through. And in the long term, that also affects your business, your cash inflow and all that. So could you please tell us what can we be able to do? Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of things we look at when building a strategy for a business. We look at short-term things that we should be reacting to. And then there are times we also look at, are there things happening or that are coming in the long term that we should just keep our eyes on? Right now, short term, in the last year, and this kind of goes back to the COVID period, the US printed a lot of money. As a result, there was global inflation based on the dollar. And then as a result, the US central bank raised interest rates when they, put out bonds. And the impact of that is basically money ends up disappearing from emerging economies like Kenya, and also just the fact that our currencies keep weakening. One, because we borrowed a lot of money and we are repaying in dollars, and so as our currency weakens, we end up paying more and more money, and it's just sucking money out of our economy. So the net impact of those two things is that a lot of money has just disappeared from Kenya. From the government is not able to do projects like it was able to in the past. And then the currency is depreciating. And then we are struggling as the country to repay our debt. So what that has ended up doing is just building a very constrained economy. Things are tough for us to repay. Ruto has no choice but to keep raising taxes so that the government can have that money to pay debt so that we don't default. I think 3 or 4 African countries have defaulted to date: Ghana, Zambia, Ethiopia right next door. It happened in December. So there has been the risk that Kenya could also default. And when you default, your currency weakens even further, and you're rated as a weak economy. And so we are between a rock and a hard place. I'll not paint a rosy picture. We came off COVID into elections, and it was like jumping off the frying pan into the fire. A series of things have made a very constrained environment. And this is likely to remain for a while because the US will take some time to ease on their interest rates so that money starts coming back into the economy. You can see something like the Safaricom share price has really dropped. And it's not because the company is doing badly. They're still doing the same profits they always did. It's just because the foreigners pulled their money out of the economy. And so it means Kenya does not have as much money as it used to. The economists will tell you the economy is still growing. You look and wonder, where is it growing? Because I'm not feeling it. And so what you'll hear from a lot of your clients is that they are struggling, to get by as far as business is concerned. If you have anyone who has a business that's doing business on the basis of dollars, they are really struggling at this moment. However, on the flip side, people who export services, who are coaching people online, consulting online, or offering services online as a web developer and that kind of thing, are having a field day because there is more money coming into their pockets for the same amount of money that they are being paid. And so there's always two sides to the coin, where there's opportunities that will show up on one side, and on the other side you'll have risks and threats that are happening. And so as business people, the key question is, how can we always be on the opportunity side? How can we keep reinventing ourselves so that whatever is happening does not kill our businesses in the meantime? Maybe we should hear Chris before I continue, because there's a lot I can say about this topic.
I think Joram, you're very right. You know, you're thinking about if you're making a personal decision to make an investment, and you're thinking that last year the dollar was at 135 and today it's at 153, going to 155. That's a 20 shilling capital gains on the dollar, and it's tax-free because it's just appreciation of currency. There's no withholding tax on it. You don't need to take your money and pay root or anything. That's just pure money. So if you think about that, and versus putting your money in Safaricom shares denominated in Kenya shillings, I mean, it's really a no-brainer. So money is going to keep flowing out of Kenya into America. And in fact, if you think about all the projections around interest rates and whether they are going to decline, it's anticipated that they'll only hit 3 levels, I don't know, 3.25 in 2025. So 2024, we are still at 3.7 in the US in terms of just rates. So that's still going to be high. So there's no cool down. And as a country, we are still importing more than we export. So as long as we are still importing more than we export, nothing is going to change. And the entrepreneurs who are here are the ones who we are depending on and betting on to start doing things, you know, making furniture, the other day I was at a shop, just shopping for window shopping, really. I was a bit idle waiting for time to pass. And I went into this hardware store and they told me, we import even ceramics, you know, like Kenyans can't make toilets. You know, we don't have artists who can carve ceramic into a toilet bowl. So we need to stop importing. But I mean, that's just doom and gloom. We get back to entrepreneurs. And one of the things we know about entrepreneurs, Winnie, is a very simple thing. When we did a survey in 2017 and asked entrepreneurs, are your businesses growing? And guess what? I think we should ask on this chart, are there people who are here whose businesses are growing? You know, and you'll find the answer is yes, there are businesses that are growing. And if you dig deeper and ask, okay, so what do you think is causing your business to grow despite all this negative, difficult environment? And you'll find very interesting things. It's that businesses were able to position themselves strategically based on their history of performance and based on certain things they knew. They're able to position themselves strategically. So one of the things that we always say is, during such times, can you find customers who pay you in dollars? So start talking to NGOs, start getting work from other countries, start getting work from outsourcing countries, depending on whether you're in a service business or in a production business. Just start positioning yourself for work other than your other place. So it's asking, can I serve non-profits who pay me in dollars? Can I serve countries in Europe or countries in the US or countries in the UK where I can be paid in euros or in pounds or in dollars? So if you start thinking like that and businesses positioning themselves like that, begin to earn in dollars, begin to earn in euros, and they'll grow. But one other important thing that we found out when we asked entrepreneurs, what could have been the cause of your growth? We asked entrepreneurs an interesting question. We asked them, did you find yourself working longer hours? Did you find yourself working weekends? Did you find yourself employing or get? And the answer was yes. So there was a very clear correlation with entrepreneurs who worked longer hours, entrepreneurs who worked weekends, then experienced growth. So the conclusion there was really, when the going gets tough, then the tough get going. And entrepreneurs, they don't give excuses. They show up and they slug it out. And sometimes you sort of say, what's my strategy? Sometimes it's as simple as, if I know what I need to do, then I just double down and do it harder than the next guy. You know, if you're going to be selling laptops, you know, if you're going to be posting on social media, you just double down and you work harder than the next guy. You open a little bit longer, you open a bit earlier, you talk to customers. When a customer walks in, you turn on your brightest smile, you ask them all the questions, you become more intimate. So sometimes it's, I know what I need to do, but then I'm just going to double down and work harder. And that's what happens during these tough economic times. The entrepreneurs who know it, they double down and they work harder. You ask your employees to push more, to do more. And as you do that, then you begin to see some results, because even despite all this, while things are great. Yeah.
I'd actually wanted to chime in. One of the things that really helped businesses is these tough economic times have come off the back of COVID and elections. So a lot of people had already built resilience. A lot of people had already cut costs. People had shut down offices where they were paying rent. You know, people took advantage of the force majeure clause during COVID to break off leases. And, you know, so others went into work from home, hybrid models and these kinds of things. So there's already quite a number of people who had built quite a bit of resilience. And that's why you might see that coming off the back of COVID and elections, that during this time, even as we are having a tough economic time, you're not hearing as much whining as you had during the COVID days or during the election days, because people adjusted. And so a lot of people took quick decisions, cut costs, changed their business models, started targeting different types of customers. As Chris said, some of the best customers to target during an election, during a downturn, an economic downturn, are NGOs. Some of them already had committed funding from a long time ago. And in some sections, funding might have diverted to Ukraine, but those who already had funding for programs are continuing to run their programs. And in many cases, they are happy to do transactions in euros or in dollars. And so if you've not been working with NGOs, that might be a good, group to start targeting and looking at. I think because technology has really improved, and in fact, I think today, because it's been a while since we did webinars, so we are kind of relearning how to do this Zoom thing. There's a time we were gurus, because during COVID, everything used to happen on this platform. And so because of things like this, you find there are people who are able to hold trainings online. And so now they're not just targeting people in their countries, but targeting people globally. There are people who are coaching on this platform. There are people who are doing consultancy and, you know, working for clients in different parts of the world from here, and they're able to earn in different currencies. And so you find that because we already went through a tough time and people are forced to think of alternative ways of doing things, some of those habits have stayed. And that's why you find a lot of entrepreneurs are still thriving. Those who survived are still thriving today, despite the fact that we are going through tough economic times.
Yeah, and really just thinking about it also is reducing the cost of your production. You're basically saying, can I do things cheaper? Can I be able to serve my customers at a lower cost? Because when things get expensive, then customers are looking for how to save. So if you find ways of leveraging technology to reduce either your cost of production or your cost of doing things, then you're able to move faster. And Joram was talking about ChatGPT and the AI revolution. You know, what it has really come to do is basically make things work a bit faster. So you can actually cut costs. Today we are having this forum here. We have about 60 people on the call. It's actually very affordable. 10 years ago, when we had to do this kind of things at Wild, we needed to book a hotel room, ask you guys to pay like 1,000 or 2,000 shillings to come and hear the same sort of knowledge and the same sort of information. So technology is really a help. And so if you're not going to leverage on technology, and then you're basically just sitting dark waiting for things to happen to you. And depending on the business you are in, delivery guys are using technology to do delivery and to do convenience. People are using technology, as Joram has, and even as I said earlier, to serve customers in other markets. Outsourcing is big. Marketing, branding, entertainment. You don't have to limit yourself. You have to figure out how to reduce costs. Give people different experiences, new experiences. There was one time I met an amazing person who in the US was offering virtual events. They were organizing virtual events and helping people to do mixers. And they were doing it right from the comfort of their living room and sending the drinks. So they would sort of like take this huge box of drinks, send it to the clients, and the clients would join on Zoom. And then the clients would be shown how to mix the drinks, and there will be sort of like a DJ party, and the clients will be having a party on one side of the country, and the entrepreneur would be on another side of the country. And she was making money. I mean, so the ideas are not at the end. The question you sort of want to ask yourself is, how do I find these ideas? How do I find these ways of connecting to my customers or to solve my customers' problems? And that goes back to the core and essence of what strategy is. It's understanding what your customer is trying to do, understanding what your customer is trying to get done. Customers have needs. If today we didn't have this platform to talk and to connect, and we still needed to connect, we still needed to learn, then we'd have to hire a room, get you guys into a room, give you some tea and coffee, have PowerPoint, and start talking. So there's a job that customers are trying to do, and if you understand what customers are trying to do, then you can be able to shift and position yourself to help customers do that job, either cheaper or faster, or more enjoyable. So customer needs are always going to be superior. Back to you, Winnie.
Thank you so much. You're making it look like it's almost possible, but I know there are people who are like, how do I even get to start working with NGOs? My small business does this and everything, yeah. But I think even as we're trying to see how we can be able to make more money, there's some things that and some mistakes that we make as businesses as well. My business might have been thriving last year, and so I might forget that there's hard economic times, and I might embark on some things or put my money somewhere that I shouldn't. So what are some of these things that maybe we should avoid also during such tough economic times? I think
so many things we can say because we sit at the center where we tend to see a lot of people just make a lot of mistakes. I think the first one is that there's no silver bullet, because I think it's a quest for a silver bullet that usually makes people invest in the wrong things, looking for that quick return, so that when somebody comes and says, crypto is the rage all right now, you put all your money, you've made a bit of extra money, you put it all there without understanding exactly what's happening in that space, and at some point you end up losing it or the like. And so I find that a lot of people are always looking for a silver bullet that will take their business from zero to wherever overnight. But I think it's just the different things that we do consistently on a daily basis. The fact that we wake up every single day and continue to strategize, continue to make the right decisions, continue to think through the challenges that we have. I found that a lot of entrepreneurs who will survive over the long term, I'll not say that there's a very specific formula, but it's just the people who don't take their foot off the pedal, in terms of they can see what is happening and they're quick to react. They are not in denial that we are in a tough economic time. They are actually taking steps to see, if my business is being affected in 1, 2, 3 ways, how do I find help that can help me turn around this particular situation? And so, I mean, you're in the events industry. I remember during COVID, everything shut down, but you're still here, because people learned and went online. Like Chris is saying, they were able to adapt and start to do events online and send things to people and keep that going, because people still had that need for events. So you'd find even today, maybe you're importing things from China, and the dollar is really giving you a beating. Is there another market that you could think about instead? Is there a country in Africa where these things are being produced, where instead of now importing from China, you can start to import from Africa? One of the things that sounds like an amorphous opportunity is just the fact that Africa is opening up to Africa. And so sometimes it has been very difficult to export things to Europe and to the US because of all these laws and AGOA and all sorts of things. But increasingly, you're finding African countries are opening up to importing things from other African countries. I think some industries that I've seen really growing of late, and based off that trend, are people who manufacture things like beauty products. I think you've seen quite a number of Kenyan brands that have come up, and a lot of markets where these things actually go to is other African markets where the barrier is lower. If you are to send things to Europe, you'd be up against L'Oreal and all sorts of things. But if you're sending them to Nigeria, to Zambia, to Tanzania, and that kind of thing, you find the barriers are a lot lower. And you find that people are actually quite excited to find a product that's made by a fellow African because they feel like it resonates a lot more with them. And so I think even at Sandbox, we do have quite a number of clients who are in that space. The other space you're seeing a lot of local manufacturing is food production, whether it's things like sauces, things like additives for foods, things like, spices. I have a friend who's doing herbs and spices in his garden, making a ton of money. By the way, here's a secret. Have you ever asked yourself why mint pineapple juice always runs out at Java? It's because there's not enough mint in the country. Okay. And I have a friend who started to grow mint and is making a killing right now. And because people are asking for this green juice in all sorts of whatever's now, that has become a big opportunity. And so recently I was in an event where I had someone from Uganda. He was really complaining, they've been growing all this maize and the government that does not take it up. And my question to him is, why are you producing something that does not have demand? Why aren't you doing your homework on where the demand is in your industry and then producing that? And I challenged him on something like mint, rosemary, and all these sorts of things. Herbs and spices are something that's becoming quite big. I understand they don't need as much as pesticides as maize and sugar and all these sorts of things. They have a short harvest time. There's a lot of demand. So it's just about being smart and looking at where are the opportunities in my industry, which are the sectors that are growing, and how can I invest in that space? A lot of us tend to get stuck in what we've always done. So we don't take a step back to look at what's happening in our industries and where the opportunities are, so that we can start building capabilities in those areas. For ourselves at Sandbox, we are professional services, and Chris mentioned ChatGPT. So definitely artificial intelligence is something we have our eye on, and asking ourselves, how do we start to automate as many of the processes that we are doing? How do we use technology as much as possible in delivering what it is? How do we capture that information? And then how do we analyze it, and how do we use it to improve our products and services, and just see, what the trends are in our industry? So every industry has things they can be looking at that they can adapt to, so that, you're not caught flat-footed on, the things that could be happening in your industry.
Thank you so much. I think
Yeah.
the thing is, go ahead, Chris. Sorry for interrupting.
A very interesting mistake that entrepreneurs sometimes make, and it's sort of one of those things, is you're making money and then you diversify because you want to make more money elsewhere, instead of just focusing on this thing that is working. And yeah, in a sense, it also comes from that point of, I'm not sure whether this thing that is working is actually going to keep working. So, but when you're going to diversify, you have to be very careful, because at the core of diversification is, yes, you want a different income stream away from the one that you have, but you also have to be careful that you're not taking on new risk and taking on new unexplored territory, because the learning curve is always going to be hitting you. So it's sort of like now that balance of, I want to start this new thing because this one that I'm doing is not working. But sometimes it's also asking yourself, this that I'm doing, why is it not working, and how can I make it work? So it's sort of like a delicate balance of making sure that you don't over diversify or diversify too soon, or diversify into things which you don't know at all, as opposed to diversifying into things which you know. Yeah, back to you, Winnie.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. So the thing about it is, at times we as business people go through the hard times, and we find either clients will get wind of that, or even your staff. How do you reassure them that it might be, my business might be going through a tough time, but I'm still able to deliver what I can, both to the staff, where it's whether salaries or whatever, and to your clients as well, because at times we tend to jump ship very fast because we've caught wind that this business is struggling or whatever, and we don't want to be caught in that melee. But at times, because of that, we have actually made businesses go down, whereas they would have been able to deliver.
Wow, you've asked a very important question, especially in this day and age, because I think we've seen a lot of headlines around startups failing and, businesses going down, and rumors of this, that, or the other business being exposed, despite the fact that maybe they are billion or shilling or dollar turnover type of companies. I think one is not just to panic too soon. We are more resilient than we think. Sometimes we just lack the confidence to know that we have what it takes to actually adapt to a situation and deal with it head on. So when it comes to the side of, dealing with like suppliers and the like, one of the things that I've found is that frequent communication and openness helps, where you're just proactive about a situation that is happening and trying to figure out solutions together with your suppliers on how, whether it's finishing, paying them and the like. This point, I can actually be quite open and vulnerable. We had to deal with a very serious, rent situation as Sandbox, because we launched just before COVID happened, and then our entire existence was during COVID and that kind of thing. And then we went into elections, and business was very difficult at that point in time. And we had to get into difficult conversations with our landlords. And but what I found, and that could be a lesson learned from that period, is that when you're proactive with your situation and what you're trying to do, and that you're actually, following through on your promises, or trying as much as possible to follow through, you actually find that the other side is open to, looking at solutions. Because sometimes we fear and tell ourselves things in our heads that may not necessarily be true of a situation if you came out and, were open with it. And even if the worst comes to the worst as entrepreneurs, I think we've all been through significantly tough situations where we get depressed, or, business is not going according to plan. But if you look back, you survived, one way or another, whether it was convincing people. I always laugh at this story of Ken Njoroge. He always tells of Cellulant, where he was negotiating with his employees' landlords not to kick them out. I mean, there's no playbook that can teach you how to do something like that. But it's just the fact that you have that passion to keep the business going and looking for solutions that will help you convince people. But at the back end, you're also working very hard to turn the situation around, to cut costs, to get those new revenue streams, to improve how it is that you're doing what you do. So, I mean, when we look down the line, the tough situation we went through really made us work very hard, and it's now beginning to yield fruit in terms of some of the partnerships we build up, some of the strategic choices we made around our pricing, and just, bumping up our pricing according to the value that we are offering, and targeting different types of partners that we know are in line with the business that we are doing. And so, again, it's not, I always say there's no silver bullet out there, because I think people are always waiting to hear, Joram, how did you do it? How did you, pull this off? I have to be honest, sometimes we were just pursuing something, and then a client came back and said, yes, we're going to work with you, or, you're in the right place at the right time. One of the experiments we did in the last, because we did quite a number of experiments where we're trying out different Sandbox models. And one of those that we tried out was around the creative sector. And it has yielded a very big client as a result. And so, sometimes you're just clutching at straws as you put some certain things in place. And then because you have been resilient and hung around long enough, you find that as the market begins to open up, you're in the right place at the right time, and you end up getting a deal. And so I think people should not look down upon themselves and feel like they are not adequately built to deal with the challenges that are there in front of them. Just face it. You know what? You don't have money in the account and you owe the landlord. Just go and sit and tell them, look, this is how it is, but can we work out something? And this is what I'm willing to do. And if they are then able to see that you're following through on that, then you find you're able to work things out as you go along. Same thing with employees. I think during COVID, we just had to be very open with people when things were difficult, when we had to reduce pay for a while for everyone so that we all continue to, work. And then, but at points where we were sure or we knew we could be able to keep people going, we're just open around, relax, don't worry. We're going to do everything possible to keep things going. So let's do our best together and let's see how we are going to, pull out of this together. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's true. At times you just have to talk to people. I think that's what a lot of us are afraid of doing. You feel like you're failing, so you sit in your little corner and you start wallowing. And yet other people would actually be very understanding. And you never know, they might also be going through the same thing as well, and you might actually be able to find solace amongst yourselves. Now, again, just going back to strategy, a lot of people usually tend to wonder, is strategy just for big corporates? Can my small little business still do strategy? Do I need to do it myself, or do I get an external person? Should I include my employees, or is it just for top level management, or for the organizations that have ExCos, is it just for ExCo? How do we navigate that, especially for people who are still building their businesses?
All right. I
Yeah,
take
go
that.
ahead. Yeah.
I think I'll take that, but quick one. Ivan is asking, how do you define a successful business? I think business success is really bottom line. Are you making a profit? Are you paying shareholders? Are you serving customers? Are customers happy? Are employees taking home something worthy of the labor that they're putting in? Really, at the end of the day, business is just balancing between all those stakeholders. And at the end of the day, if you're making a profit, that is the first and most important distinction of a business. You're making a profit because you're serving your customers, they're happy with your products, and your employees are happy with the pay they're getting. And if you're making a profit, you're definitely then paying your shareholders. That's a successful business. The rest really are characteristics or features that make a business successful. Coming back to the question of strategy, strategy is for everyone. If you're in business, then you must have a strategy. And even when you don't have a documented strategy, sometimes that itself isn't a strategy. You don't have a strategy and you think you don't have a strategy, but that's sometimes your strategy, because you meet entrepreneurs and they say, you know what, for me, I'm just going to do what I did last year. That's a strategy. You've made a decision to do exactly what you did last year because maybe what you did last year worked. So you're saying, I'll double down, I'll work harder, I'll repeat what I did last year. Or you're basically going to say, I'm not going to do what I did last year. It didn't work, I'm going to do something different. That's the strategy. So at the end of the day, strategy is really about making a decision, making a choice about what to do to be able to give your business success. And ultimately, if you want to then put together a strategy, then the question you're asking is, should I do it alone or should I do it with consultants? I think the courage to be able to ask for help, and even the people who have turned up here to listen and to be able to ask, how do I do this? That sometimes makes a big difference between entrepreneurs who succeed and those who don't succeed. Because if you don't know what you're doing and you insist on doing it, then you're basically going to get stuck. And if you know what you're doing, then you need to get a different perspective. And people read books, people listen to podcasts, people attend master's programs. And why? Because we are looking for new knowledge, new information that can help us become better at what we do. Imagine a chef who thinks that their recipe is the best in the world and won't bother to find out what others are doing, won't bother to experiment, won't bother to explore. Their food will just remain stagnant and remain flat. But if you begin to explore, you begin to find other things other people are doing, explore with different spices, then your food begins to become alive, And so I always say, if you're going to do strategy, then you're better off asking for help than doing it yourself. Now, when you're asking for help, the thing is, how do I get help? You can get help from consultants, you can get help from podcasts, you can get help from books, you can get help from attending an MBA, you can get help from attending a program, you can get help from friends, you can even get help from mentors, you can get help from advisors. But the bottom line is, you're better off doing it with somebody. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just to add of that, one of the things getting help helps a business with is getting an independent perspective. Sometimes we are too steeped in our business to have an alternative perspective as to things we could do differently. Sometimes just somebody else looking at your business and asking you hard questions around, why do you do this way? Why do you have this many people? Why are you letting this person get away with this? Why are you, just having somebody else to bounce ideas that they're independent, they are not emotionally attached to your business. So there are many times when I meet business people, or sometimes we're in a session and we're having a discussion with a business person, and they're describing a situation which I would consider completely atrocious from my point of view, because I'm not attached to it at all. I remember recently I was having a discussion with a business, and I could see it was a family business, and they described a scenario where I could tell there was a family member who was really messing up. And I was telling them, I can tell you this because I am not emotionally attached to your business, but in all honesty, this family member is not pulling their weight. And, if this was another type of business, they would have been fired by now. And, that would take someone aback hearing something like that. But that's the power of an independent person, just having an independent view into your business. That's why governance works, because you have people, just looking at a business for what it is, and pointing out things which you, who is very attached to the business, may not be able to see. Maybe you're holding on to some people longer than you should. Maybe you're holding on to a business line or a client who's not making money for you, but because you're attached to the brand or the prestige of a brand, you continue to hold on to the business, and it's really killing you. And so there are many decisions that you could make when you have somebody independently pointing out things. But as Chris said, I would also say learn as much as possible independently before you even get somebody to help you, but also be resourceful. If your cousin is a strategy consultant, take advantage. Ask them if they can help you, and help you with certain tools or templates on how you can go about it before you have a paid service. But then at the end of the day, also make an investment. One of the things that always surprises me is when I read reports of large companies like Microsoft or Apple and the like, and I find that in their notes, they still have McKinsey come as a strategy consultant to help them with something. Recently, I was reading a report and I saw that IBM had actually gotten a strategy consulting firm to help them think through which new business lines they should go into. These are businesses that turn over billions, and they also still invest in getting help. So, Sembuse Sisi.
I like that so much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I just want to do a quick reminder. Please channel your questions through the chat box, and we will tackle them at the end of the session. There's also a feedback form that has been shared on the chat box. So just give your feedback, answer the questions, and then we'll discuss as we go by. Chris, now I want to put a spotlight on you. You once said something that really stuck in my head, yeah? At times we focus too much on strategy, and at times the strategies just go and sit somewhere in a shelf or on our computers, our emails, but we don't really go to it, yeah? And what you said is it's time for us to be able to start just implementing, execute. Forget about everything, execute. What did you mean by that?
I think, even as you're talking, I was just coming up, I was remembering a statement: ideas are a dime a dozen, you show up into a room where the entrepreneurs are, and everybody has an idea. But if you think about the differences between those who succeed and those who remain in dream world, is that those who succeed are very, very, very ruthless at execution. I mean, you've heard of the Kenyan story about the Singapore government coming and borrowing our playbook and going and executing it. And today, Singapore is one of the countries that I would love to live in. I was watching this documentary about how to live to a very, very old age. And Singapore have got it right. They have all the makings of what it takes to have a beautiful place where people can enjoy life, people can grow old. It's just fantastic. And where did they begin that journey? It is said that they began right here in Kenya. They took our playbook, went and executed and become very good at implementing. And if you look at even countries like South Korea, It's just ruthless implementation. If you look at China, China was a communist nation not too long ago. I mean, if you think about it during the Cold War period, China was, poverty was very, very, very serious. But is it 30 or 40 short years, China is a power to be reckoned with. So how did they do it? How did they pull it off? Meritocracy, ruthless execution. So sometimes it's not so much how many ideas do I have, how many strategies do I have. Sometimes it's just as simple as find the 20% that will make 80% of the difference and just execute and implement ruthlessly, and just do it because you know what needs to be done. Just do it. If it's talking to customers, you need to call each and every single customers on your book. Pick up the phone, just do it. If you know it's about posting on social media, just wake up and post. This whole idea of it must be perfect, I must get the right angle, I must buy the right phone. Those are stories. Just do it. I must get the right English. No, just do it. If it's about calling customers, you don't have to have a script. Just wake up, call. When you run out of airtime, then now that's when you'll figure out at that point what happens. What do I do? I've run out of airtime. Okay, let me call them on WhatsApp. Get yourself into a Wi-Fi zone, make a WhatsApp call. Because at the end of the day, it's execution that will trump and will beat. If you think about the run up to Christmas, and this is a very interesting example, as people are approaching Christmas Day, what happens? All the contracts that were pending, people are pushing, sign this contract, do this, send this proposal. Even forget about even Christmas Day. If our contract, our very own government, June 30th, no, May 30th, what happens? Everybody is rushing to complete projects, complete deadlines, because what? An imaginary deadline is coming. It's not an imaginary deadline. It's just that, if the road was going to be built on May 1, it might as well be built on June 1, But guess what? On May 30th, the government is closing it. And that budget, if it is not spent, it will not be spent. It will be spent next year. It will just be carried forward. So it's just once people have a deadline, people do things. And so execution gets things done. Yeah,
I agree with Chris because in the time I was a strategy consultant, I think the thing I struggled with most with my clients was that we would sit, we do all this analysis and we decide this is where our industry is going. We need to invest in 1, 2, 3. And we even built a process where we would now build execution, where I would agree with the client, we're coming back in 3 months to review. And so 1 month to the 3 months, we tell them, remember that date, we are going to have the review. And then you start to hear excuses. 2 weeks to, they tell you, oh, everyone is not available. Can we push it by another month? And there are some people who would literally go on pushing and pushing and pushing until it would never happen. And in that case, you begin to realize the problem is not the strategies you came up with. It's just that we are very good at planning and we feel good about it. And there are all these great things that, we would have done. But when it comes to executing, we have excuses, we have stories, we have every reason why that certain thing did not happen. And in my experience, it's probably those difficult things that you're supposed to do, those tough calls that you're supposed to make that would make your business successful in future. And so I find a lot of people, avoiding having that hard conversation, avoiding making that tough call, avoiding, cutting off that thing, avoiding getting out of that industry and getting into a new one because you're in a dying industry and you probably need to start investing in one that is growing. And so those tough calls, I find that people really struggle with making them because many times there are relationships involved. Many times, there are things you've overinvested in and sometimes it's just not working and you need to cut it off and move on. And so I would say for sure, execution, we need to become ruthless executors. If you've hung around me long enough, that I've grown nowadays. We do fast and Kesi badai. And I even tell my team, and many of them are here, you'd rather make that mistake, but at least you took a decision than waited for me to come and make the decision on your behalf. We need to keep moving, keep learning, keep making less mistakes. And you find that our businesses are growing as we go along. I just wanted to address something someone had asked, provide examples and insights how one can balance between taking advantages that provide short-term returns and long-term returns, especially in a dynamic macroeconomic environment. One simple thing right now, there's a time there was risks around our government bonds, but I think interest rates are probably at their highest in maybe even 10 years. If you had some money, you could put it there. The same thing with bonds in the US. You could, if you have money in dollars, keep it there. As you know, the depreciation continues, you're making money. And you know, even as you look into the future, I know one of the things that's happening right now and has been happening since COVID is the logistics space. If you're in that space, you know, as ships are being diverted and all sorts of things, prices end up going higher. So the industries maybe you could invest in, or services you could invest in the short term that are based on a short-term occurrence that is happening where, you know, people are making a lot of money. And so I know right now a lot of people who are in that space of trading dollars and you know, helping people invest or save money or keep money in dollars and that kind of thing are really benefiting. And so it's just looking at what's that short-term opportunity that's happening, but it must be a solid opportunity. It must be very well informed. It shouldn't just be something that, you know, you're flimsily taking advantage of. It has to be something that's extremely well thought out. The other thing that I can also put out is maybe the courage to stay out of an opportunity because you don't really understand it and continue to do what you know what to do and it's working, can also be a strategy in building towards the future. But as Chris will tell you as a strategy, much as we have a tough economic period right now, we are going to repay that debt somehow in the next, I think by 2027, 28, there's been some predictions made using data that's when we will really ease off these challenges that we have with all this exorbitant debt. On the other side, the economy is growing, so it means Kenya is going to continue growing. Are there industries that are growing today? Yes. Education, high schools, that's a big space that needs a lot of investment and higher education. And so is that a sector to look into? Technology, we've invested in it and we've been good for a while. I think it will be something to invest in. I was telling people, even there are people who are going to make a lot of money just helping people understand ChatGPT and how to use it. I remember when Microsoft came and people just used to take packages to learn how to do that. There's a lot of people who made a killing at that point. And so just keep looking out for what the opportunities could be in your industry. I think I heard somewhere, I need to get these facts, but you know, because of what has happened in Ukraine and all sorts of things, the commodities space for food is going to be quite an opportunity for a while to come because people have underinvested in food. So it's looking for data in your industry, looking at where the trends are headed, what are the opportunities that are going to be coming as far as your industry is concerned. Kenya's population is going to keep growing. There are certain things that will continue happening. And so it's just trying to keep a pulse on that kind of data and investing accordingly.
Thank you so much. So I think, Chris, you were in the process of telling us about education. And I think what I had is that there's some things that you can be able to do short term, the things you can be able to do mid-term and long term. How can you be able to classify these? What is short term? What is mid-term? What's long term?
I think in the game of business, there's for me it's not so much short term, long term, and mid term. For me it's primary, secondary, and tertiary. And for me, primary is your business is primary. You need to invest in your business because that's the thing that works. And as long as it is working, then it's able to produce for you a salary. So you have a salary that you draw from your business. It's able to produce for you a dividend so that you're able to draw the dividend. It's able to produce for you money to reinvest back in that business. You know, so when you're running your business, primarily you need to make sure that your business is working. So that I think I'm going to reorganize it. Pay yourself a salary, reinvest some money in the business so that the business is growing, and then take out a dividend. Now, when you've taken out your dividend, then now you can start exploring now what else to do. Now that's secondary. You take out your dividend and you can now ask yourself, do you want to put your money in money markets? Do you want to put your money in real estate? Do you want to put your money in another business, sort of like invest in a startup? Do you want to put your money in the bank and hold it in fixed deposit? You get. And at the Sandbox, we do have a personal finance management expert, and you can be able to book a session and they can be able to guide you. But for me, I say primary, make sure your business is working. It can pay you a salary, you can reinvest in your business, and then it can pay you a dividend. Once you have your dividend, then you talk to the personal finance expert who can now help you put your money in the right baskets for risk, for health, for wellness, for retirement, and those kind of things. And then tertiary, now you've made enough money. Do you want to start investing in startups? Do you want to start investing in other businesses and sort of like paying back and giving back? So for me, that's how I would categorize it. But I would say talk to the Sandbox expert on financial wellness, and you'll be able to get very specific advice on this is where to put your money.
And if I was to chime in, you'd be surprised how many people do not have goals for their business. Even people who are probably, joining us today. Just a whole question of what's your target in terms of what you want your business to make this year. A lot of people don't have that conversation with themselves or within their business. It's just kind of like, we are making money, we have clients, they're paying us, so we are going to keep doing it. But just that very simple exercise of like setting a goal and for what you want to make as a profit, for what you want to make as overall revenue, it drives you to start thinking backwards in terms of, okay, how much money do I need to make every month? Is it 500,000 or 600,000 to be able to cover my costs? Because once you know that, then now you can go back and look at the number of clients you have and just get a sense of, are these clients enough for me to make a profit? Is my pricing good enough? Am I doing too much work? Because maybe I'm serving 20 clients and at the end of the day, I've still made 550K instead of 600, so I'm still not making a profit. So do I need to make a decision about my pricing? I can see somebody has asked, how do you handle pricing conversations with that client who gives you prestige as a brand, but you're not actually making money from them? We have this argument, we have this argument with clients all the time about, is it actually doing good for your business to have, that brand on your profile, or are you better off cutting them off and keeping a few smaller clients, but you're profitable on those? Maybe let Chris handle that one, because that's a bit of a difficult one.
I think the first thing is, if you're making a loss on any client account, that client account should either be upgraded by pricing or should be shut down. You should not make a loss on a client account, not for image, not for anything. If you want to have, quote unquote, a loss leader, the supermarkets have it. They put bread at the back of the supermarket so that when you go in and you're smelling that bread, as you're going for the bread, you end up buying plates. But they don't make a loss on the bread. The bread sort of still breaks even. So, and you have to be very careful when you're ascribing this thing of brand building by anchoring clients and that. It's a very tricky thing. Now, if you want to talk about pricing, the first thing is, pricing is not about cost. Pricing is about value. Do you know the value you're providing your customer with? Does the customer know the value they are getting from you? If you have a pricing conversation or a cost conversation, you're having the wrong conversation. You need to have a value conversation. And if you find you have a customer who you're not able to have a value conversation with, then that's a customer that you want to start planning how to exit that relationship. Now, of course, you don't wake up tomorrow and say, client X, cheers. No, you have to figure out, if I remove that revenue from my books, what is it going to impact me? And what is it going to mean for my business? So you have to think about it. But any pricing conversation you want to have, it's not a pricing conversation. It's a value conversation. What is the value that we are bringing to your business? And how can you compensate us for that value? Sometimes it's not easy to have that discussion, but the more you ask yourself, and then you start presenting, this is the value we are giving you. This is the value we are giving you. This is the value we are adding to you. at some point the client will begin to see it. And if they don't see it, then in a sense, that's not a good client. So you need to start working and hedging how you will leave that client and communicate on value.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one of the things we always have a discussion about when it comes to the whole question of pricing versus big clients is, first and foremost, if any client is paying you more than 25% of your overall annual revenue, that is already a setup for you to be in trouble, because that client is going to bully you. That client is going to push you down on pricing, and because you have that fear of losing them and losing a majority of your revenue, you're going to do anything possible to keep them, and sometimes you end up doing very irrational things. And so one of the things we just say is, even if, so say today you're earning 5 million shillings and then you get a client who's giving you another 5 million, they become your 50% client. Start to ask yourself, how do I make 20 million so that I bring this client's revenue annually down to less than 25%. So how do I get another 4 clients giving me a similar amount so that I can balance it out, so that I don't lose sleep if they ever come and threaten that they want to pull away. You find that what gives you a lot of courage is when you have a multiple of clients. And in fact, if you can take that figure lower to make sure that none of your clients pays more than 10%, like you have a really diversified revenue, it makes it a lot easier to have these conversations, because what makes people not have those pricing conversations is the fear that once I lose this, my entire business is going to come to an end. So strategically, why don't you work on diversifying the number of clients you have, so that when this client comes and even says, you know, you guys, now we are going to give this job to someone else, you can say, okay, it'll be sad to lose you, but you know you're not going to go hungry from the next day, because you have diversified, we call it concentration risk in strategy. And so it's something that you should really look at ensuring you don't get into that trap.
Yep.
That's very, very interesting. So I'm going to reiterate something again. We have a feedback form on the chat box. Please fill the feedback form. We will be having an open day, a virtual open day session that will take place on Tuesday, 23rd at 11 a.m., Tuesday, 23rd of January, where we can actually have an open discussion about business strategy. It's a free session so that you can be able to see how we can help your businesses and how Wild can come to help your business. So you'll get to at least have an understanding of what services you can get from Wild. Please channel your questions through the chat box. Thank you everyone who has sent their questions. Now we're running out of time. We have about 10 minutes, so I'm not going to spend too much, but Chris and Joram, I'm asking for a friend. Someone would like to know, is there a short guide or a template that you can share, or tools that you can share with them on how to just build their strategies? They're saying they're a small business, they might not be able to afford Wild. So is there a tip you can give us that they can be able to use to at least start them off on how to start preparing the strategy?
So let me first start by saying Tuesday, 23rd January, 11 a.m., strategy open day. We will give you those 4 tips. So please make sure you turn up. Don't miss. It's for free. 2, follow us on our socials. At Wild International, we have free programs that are sponsored by different donors, different organizations. Even at Sandbox, we have some free programs. So don't say there's nothing for you. Just follow us on our socials, and we'll find different things that we can offer you. Some are for free. And then we have tiered packages. We have things that we can do in cohorts, so it's cheaper. So, and we have things that we can do in bite size, so you can pay over 1 year period. So, I mean, don't say it's too expensive, I cannot get. The 29th of the 23rd of January is virtual, 11 a.m. It's virtual, not in person, it's virtual. So we'll send you the link for all the people who've participated. We'll send you a link and you can turn up. So don't die alone. Reach out, say you need help. We have things we can do. And it goes becoming, what is it called? Valuable based on how big your business is. We have different packages. We have 1 hour sessions, we have 1 day sessions, we have cohort sessions, we have sponsored sessions. So don't say, I don't have money, therefore I can't do my strategy. No, Wild is here for you. Now, having said that, if you want to sort of just ask yourself some basic questions on how to develop a strategy. The number one question is, who is my customer? And what are the needs of my customer that I'm solving? So who is my customer and what are the needs of my customer that I'm solving? You ask yourself that question. It's a fundamental strategy question, because the follow-up question to that then is, if this is the need that I'm solving for them, then what is my value proposition? What is the statement that says this is what I am doing for my customer? So you start with my customer, the need I'm solving for them, then you convert that into your value proposition. Then now you ask, if this is my customer, where can I find more of them? So you know who your customer is, you know the need you're solving for them. Where can I find more of them? So if you ask yourself where you can find more of them, then you come up with an answer of, I can find them here, here, here. Then it becomes very easy. You just basically go and position yourself there. It's sort of like the guy, the hawker with the umbrella when it's raining. Who is my customer? Is not the guy in the car. It's the guy taking a bus. Where will I find them? At the bus stop. Why? Because when they alight from the matatu, they're going to be rained on, or the shoe shine in the morning. Who is my customer? The guy who has come from Limuru. Why? He has red soil. The moment he alights from that matatu, he needs to clean his shoes before he goes into the office. So if you know who your customer is and what problem you're solving for them and what your value proposition is, the next question is, where will I find them? And then what will I tell them when I find them? Basically, then now that becomes what you tell your customers so that they can buy from you. If you answer those questions, then you are 80% on your strategy. The next thing is now what Joram talked about. What is your goal? How many customers do you want to have in the year? Now you know your customers, you know where to find them. How many do you want to have? Based on the number that you want to have, then you can now work backwards and say, what do I need to do to get there? If I'm running a shoe shine and I want to serve 1,000 customers per day, that basically means I need maybe 100 shoe shine boxes. So then now, how do I get 100 shoe shine boxes? Can the market accommodate 100 shoe shine boxes? That's what we're talking about. So open day, 23rd of January, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Let's talk about strategy.
Yeah, and I would really encourage you go and see Chris and his team turn around people's revenues within a very short period of time. And that's basically because a lot of our business efforts go wasted. Why? We are selling to the wrong customers. We are selling at the wrong price. We are selling in the wrong market. We are selling in a market that doesn't have enough customers to make our business profitable. We are serving needs or not serving comprehensive needs because we've not really taken time to see what it is that we're doing for the customer. A lot of us sell products and services because we've seen other people sell products and services rather than come about it from where is the need and where is the biggest need and how can I invest in that. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of unmet needs in Kenya. We still have a lot of both personal and business challenges where nobody has come up with a solution for it or tailored it in the way that people want to consume it. And so I cannot add anything to what Chris has said. Make sure you have a goal for this year. In fact, that's the one thing you can do today. Have a number and then just work backwards. That number will get you critically thinking around, am I breaking even? Am I making money? Do I have the right number of customers? Then you can work backwards and just see, where can I get more? Am I, are there enough customers? And, a strategy person would help you actually look at economic or market data and be able to tell if you have enough customers and if you can price such that you can be able to be profitable as a business. Otherwise, you'll find that you run your business and you have a lot of frustration. You feel like you're always hitting a wall because things are just not moving forward. But it could be any of those things that we mentioned. You're probably targeting the wrong customers. You probably, have the wrong prices where you're making money is coming in, you're banking checks, but at the end of a month, you've paid everyone and everyone has been paid except yourself. So you're basically a money transfer service for everyone else except yourself. And you're going back to have hard conversations at home. But those are things we can actually sit down and help you look at and see how to make things, work better and work profitably.
Excellent. I don't even think we need to add anything else, but I'm going to just quickly go through some of the things that have really popped up as we're having this conversation. One of the gentlemen said, no strategy is also a strategy. Yeah. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Yeah. But there's a lot that you can be able to do if you can be able to figure out your strategy in a primary sense, secondary and tertiary. Yeah. So I'm hoping that all of you have been able to fill the feedback form, and we will share with you an invite to the 23rd session that we will have. I'm going to close this session with a quote that I saw from Jack Welch, the former CEO of General Electric. He said, "In real life, strategy is actually very straightforward. You pick a general direction and implement like hell." And I'm going to end the session there. Thank you so much, Joram. Thank you. And thank you everyone for attending this session. We will be having these sessions every month, every second and third Wednesday of the month. So please keep checking our socials. Like Chris said, check the World International socials, check out Sandbox International. You will see all the sessions that we'll be having. Follow us at Winnie Gore Consultancy on our pages. That's our Facebook, Instagram, and all the other platforms. We look forward to interacting with you in the year 2024. All the best with your businesses. Let's go and make money. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Winnie.
And thank you, entrepreneurs, for turning up. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.